21. Thebes is tentatively connected with modern Tubas, about 15 kilometers 9.5 mi of Shechem, although no suitable remains have been found. Theophilus Lus loved by God. Friend of God. The person to whom Luke addressed both his Gospel and the Acts of Apostles. Luke 1. 3, 4. Act 1. 1. His being called most excellent may indicate a high position of some kind, or it may simply be an expression of high esteem. Theophilus apparently was a Christian, having been orally taught about Jesus Christ and his ministry. Luke's written statement served to assure him of the certainty of what he had learned previously by word of mouth. Thessalonians, letters to the 2 inspired letters of the Christian Greek scriptures, perhaps the first to be composed by the Apostle Paul, who identifies himself as the writer of both. 1th 1. 1. 2. 18. 2th 1. 1. 3. 17. At the time these letters were committed to writing, Silvanus, Silas and Timothy were with Paul. 1th 1. 1. 2th 1. 1. This points to Corinth as the place from which the letters were sent, as there is no record that all three men labored together again after their stay at Corinth in the course of Paul's second missionary journey. Act 18. 5. Since the Apostles' 18-month activity in Corinth appears to have begun in the autumn of 50 CE, likely it was at about this time that the first letter was written to the Thessalonians. Act 18. 11. See chronology, the later apostolic period. The second letter must have followed or not long thereafter, probably about 51 CE. In all outstanding catalogues of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries CE, both letters are listed as canonical. They also harmonize fully with the rest of the scriptures in admonishing God's servants to maintain fine conduct at all times. Noteworthy, too, is the emphasis placed on prayer in these letters. Paul, along with his fellow workers, always remembered the Thessalonians in prayer. 1th 1. 2. 2. 13. 2th 1. 3, 11. 2. 13, and the apostle encouraged them. Pray incessantly. In connection with everything give thanks. 1th 5. 17, 18. Brothers, continue in prayer for us. 1th 5. 25. 2th 3. 1. Encouragement and counsel to a relatively new congregation written by Paul about 50 CE, a few months after he had left Thessalonica, because of mob violence. Commendation for the congregation. 1-10. Paul warmly commends the Thessalonians for their faithful work and endurance. The Thessalonians have become an example to other believers in accepting the word under tribulation, and with the joy that God's Spirit produces everywhere it is being reported how they abandoned idolatry and turned to slaving for the living God and are waiting for Jesus. Paul's example went among them too. 1-12. After suffering insolent treatment at Philippi, Paul drew strength from God and preached boldly to the Thessalonians. Paul shunned flattery, covetousness, and glory-seeking. He avoided becoming a burden to the brothers, but instead treated them gently as a nursing mother would and exhorted them as a loving father. Encouragement to remain firm in the face of persecution. 13. 3. 13. The brothers in Thessalonica, after accepting the message proclaimed to them as the word of God, were persecuted by their fellow countrymen. The same things have happened in Judea, where Christians are suffering at the hands of Jews. Paul has greatly desired to see the Thessalonians. When he could no longer bear the lack of news about them, he sent Timothy, and Timothy has just returned with good news about their spiritual condition. Paul prays for their continued increased admonition regarding attitude and conduct. 1. 5. 28. Walk more fully in the course pleasing to God. Abstain from fornication. Love the brothers to an even greater textoi acute miritra longo. Thessalonians, letters to the 1091. Background for 1 Thessalonians. Practically from the beginning, the congregation to which 1 Thessalonians was addressed experienced persecution. After arriving at Thessalonica, Paul preached in the synagogue there for 3 Sabbaths. A considerable number of persons became believers, and a congregation was established. Fanatical Jews, however, stirred up mob violence. Not finding Paul and Silas at the home of Jason, the mob dragged Jason and certain other brothers before the city rulers, accusing them of sedition. Only upon giving sufficient security were Jason and the others released. This prompted the brothers to send Paul and Silas to Berea by night, evidently for the sake of the congregation and the safety of the two men. Acts 17. 1-10. Thereafter, besides continued persecution 1-2. 14. The congregation seemingly experienced great sorrow over losing 1/8 of their number in death. 4. 13. Aware of the pressure that was being brought to bear against the new congregation and very much concerned about its effect, Paul dispatched Timothy to comfort and strengthen the Thessalonians. Earlier the apostle had tried to visit them twice, but Satan cut across his path. 2. 17. 3. Receiving Timothy's encouraging report about the faithfulness and love of the Thessalonians, Paul rejoiced. 1-3. 6-10. However, they needed further encouragement and admonition to resist weaknesses of the flesh.